Welcome to the Money Maven Project podcast. If you're here to learn how to obtain freedom over your time and money through real estate investing, you're in the right place. Create the life you want by living with intention and becoming a maven in mindset, money, and real estate. Now, here's your host, Justin Monk.
Hey, this is Justin Monk with the Money Maven Project podcast. Super excited today. We'll be interviewing Shelby Osbourne, and I'm super excited to hear your story and see what we can learn from you. So tell us a little bit about your background, where you come from, and what you're up to today.
Sure. So I was in the military for 6 years before getting out to pursue real estate full time as an investor first. That was my intention. And then I got my real estate license just because it makes a ton of sense and you're in the weeds every day with it. So after that was back in 2018 is when I got out of the military. After my first year as an investor and a broker, I was the Keller Williams Rookie of the Year for all of North and South Carolina. And I had acquired 16 units by that time. And fast forward to where we are now, I am the CEO of the Five Pillars Realty Group, which I own and founded. And we have locations in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and just recently expanded to Charlotte, which I'm at now. And I own 74 doors. So
74 doors. Well, that's amazing.
Fast forwarding.
And that was quick. But so all that since 2018, that's when you got out of the military, right?
Right. I made the decision in spring of 2017, and I got my license before I got out. And I actually got my very first intentional real estate investment in November of 2017. So a little bit before, but like balls to the wall in January of 2018.
Yeah. Wow. That is impressive. Wow. So what's the mixture of the 74 doors? Is that multifamily, all single family? What do you have?
I have a lot of variety in my portfolio. So I have a handful, I only have one condo, and it doesn't matter. I have one condo, I have a handful of single families, and most of them are residential multifamily, so 2 to 4 doors. I do have a couple commercial properties in there, my biggest being a 6 unit, and then I have a 5 unit. Actually, I lied. We recently bought it was actually a giant single family mansion in Fayetteville downtown, and back in the 1950s, because it was built in 1835. In the 1950s, they chopped it into apartments, and now it is 9 apartments in this mansion that we're Airbnb-ing out all of them. So I lied when I said my biggest was 6. It is 9.
We'll let it slide.
Okay.
So that's impressive. So what got you interested in real estate? It sounds like you made that decision pretty, drew a line in the sand that that's what you wanted to do as an investor. What got you keyed into real estate?
Yeah, a lot of things started happening at the same time in my life. I had recently moved duty stations. They do that in the Army, they move you. And I was at Fort Bragg, which is known as the center of the universe for anyone in the military world. It's like the largest military installation in the country. And they have a reputation for being very intense, which I don't mind. I actually love intensity, but there's so much of the history of we've always done it this way. Things were incredibly inefficient. I was frustrated that solutions weren't taken seriously just because they were brushed off. And then I looked ahead the next 5, 10, 15 years to the retirement that everyone stays in 20 years for. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. There's no way I'm doing this for 15 more years. So that happened, that clicked. And then also when I was a brand new lieutenant in the Army and my first duty station, which was back in Washington, I purchased a primary residence with my VA loan, 0% down, not running numbers, not thinking investment property at all. But at that time that this light bulb clicked in my head, I also started paying attention to that property that I stumbled into, who I'd thrown a renter in because I didn't want to sell it, was cash flowing. Like I was making money and I put 0% down and I didn't manage it. And I was like, wow, what if I just did that a bunch more times? And then of course, hit me with some Robert Kiyosaki, some bigger pockets, and drank all the Kool-Aid, and here we are.
Yeah, perfect. That's a common story, but it's the path, right? Everybody you hear that a lot. Where like, I don't want to work the normal work till I'm 65 and then retire. Like that is becoming not the only path anymore. And I love that light bulb kind of came on, and that's kind of what started you looking at different avenues. And I hope that light comes on for others too, right? If they're not digging whatever they're doing and they want to fast track to, into financial independence or whatever it is they're seeking, I mean, real estate's a great vehicle for that.
Totally. And I am grateful that I was in a job at the time that was uncomfortable. So it did help expedite the decision-making process.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges I would think is that a lot of people might not make that sudden decision if they were comfortable in their jobs and it wasn't so bad. But I think it's just that, make the decision, be disciplined with yourself, go for what you really want, and actually go for it. You know?
So what has this is probably a more appropriate question for the end, but I'm going to ask it now. So what has the real estate investing done for you as far as freedom of time and freedom of money to do what you're passionate about? Because that's ultimately what most people are seeking when they start to jump into real estate.
Yes. I am disgustingly happy with my life. And it's not because, so when I started out, I was like, I'm going to get all of these rental properties and they're going to pay my bills and I'm going to run off into, I'm going to go Europe and I'm going to forget any responsibilities in my life and I'm going to do whatever I want. And so then you kind of hit this point where you don't exactly get there, but you're like, I could run away from everything. I could go off and never talk to someone again. Yeah. And then you just kind of, at least for me, have this life crisis where you're like, gosh, what's the meaning of life? What am I doing? What do I want this freedom for, to run off? And in my head, I started reading different books, listening to different podcasts, and have come to the conclusion that I feel most fulfilled and purposeful when I'm working towards goals. When I have heavy responsibility on my shoulders, that's when I feel best, and when I can take care of and impact those around me. So it's completely shifted what my dream of life will be. But I guess it's all made possible to even have that realization by going so hard into real estate and putting in the work and getting the properties. Real estate is amazing. It has done it all.
Yeah.
For me. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great answer. So now tell us how did you find these deals that got you to the 74 doors? How are you finding them?
Many different ways. So a couple of them are MLS properties. And just so you know, of my entire portfolio, I have one that's in Washington State and all the rest are in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is amazing market. I'm very biased, of course, but love it. So I'm looking at my portfolio list right now. And in the beginning, I got almost all of them on the MLS because back in 2018, my team and I hadn't made so much noise and it was less competitive. Fayetteville's really come on the map in regards to a good place to invest. So it's very competitive now to find anything on the MLS. But yeah, so MLS in the beginning, foreclosures, really big on that. A couple of these are the lovely for rent sign in the yard where you call and you say, hey, you don't like being a landlord, do you? And then wind up with the 6-unit apartment complex and a duplex. So that was a lovely one. Some of these are off-market deals. One of my partners, I have a couple partners, and one of my partners is really good with connecting with people and then staying on them. So one was an 80-year-old woman he stumbled upon who literally offloaded 21 doors to us after he called her once a week and sweet talked her for months. So we did that. And then courthouse. Yeah, that's the last one we do wholesale deals sometimes, but looking at my particular portfolio, I actually haven't bought from a wholesaler. I help a lot of clients with it. But courthouse foreclosures,
perfect. And how initially did you start funding them? What was your attack that way?
So fun. Okay. So my very first ever was that primary residence 0% down VA loan. If you haven't used your primary residence loans, holy crap, do that right now. Do it yesterday. What are you doing? Mm-hmm. The next one was, this is back in the very beginning before I really knew creative financing, any strategies. And I put 25% down on a duplex. And I did that once and I was like, wow, I can't do that many times
No, you
because
can't.
that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it was only a $75,000 property, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that once. And then I used my VA loan for a second time and put 0% down on a quad. Of course, now that I know something, if you can get 4 units for 0% down, why not?
Yeah.
And then after that, I was shit out of luck because I was out of the Army. I didn't have a W-2 paycheck. I was commission based, and banks are like, why would we ever give money to you? You have no experience as an agent. There's no way you're going to, And so I was like, well, crap. But of course, you have to just find a way to win. So that's when I started heavily farming and doing research first on private money. I have grown up around a lot of people who, my dad is incredibly social, like way more than me, but he has introduced me to tons of people. He was in the military for 24 years before getting out. So like has tons of connections. And I started reconnecting with lots of people. And that's how I funded and still continue to fund the majority of my deals with private money, which is amazing just because there's so much flexibility and you can present the options that you want, and it's all negotiation. It's all whatever you decide. So I'm a huge fan, and those were BRRRR deals. So we could, repay with a balloon payment over X amount of years.
Right.
Am I talking too fast? Do I need to slow down?
No, that's good. You maybe explain exactly what the BRRRR process is. Like, give us an example of one of the deals that you use private money on, and how private money works very well with a BRRRR deal.
Sure. Yeah. So the thing with private money is when people lend you the money they have sitting in their banks, they're not trying to generally lend it to you for a 30-year loan at a fixed rate over 30 years. Because generally they're older by this point and they're like, bro, in 30 years when I get this money back, I'm going to be like 97, like get out. So the way that I structure my private money is generally I will do interest-only payments over a span of, I try to get 5-year balloons. That's not always possible depending on who I'm talking to and how much they have experience with me already, because it's all about who knows you, likes you, and trusts you, right? So if I have relationships with people, generally I can get a little better deal. And if not, then maybe it's 12-month balloon. But anyway, so what happens is they will lend me X amount of money, which is generally the cost of both the purchasing the property and the rehab. And if I'm doing an Airbnb, which I'm a big fan of, then sometimes furnishing the Airbnb. So they'll lend me X amount. And then with that X amount, I will purchase a distressed property generally. So the BRRRR strategy, you're going to buy something pretty shitty normally. You're going to rehab it, and then you're going to rent it and then refinance it to repeat the process. The key with this is up front, you have to understand what your ARV will be, your after rehab value, after repair value, because if you are not spun in really tight with that, then you won't be able to pull out all of the money that you put into the project. And if you can't do that, how are you going to pay your private money people back?
Right.
So it's so important. You do not mess with private money unless you know what you're doing. You've done all the research. So.
Right. No, that's perfect. And your story is very similar to mine, where I had one property that I lived in and moved out and rented it out. And then I was shopping for the next deal, because I had this inclination or this idea that real estate was a good thing. Hey, how do I get another property? And as I started to learn, I'm like, wait, they want me to put 30% down, 25, 30% down.
Yeah.
Like, well, let me count how many times I can do that before I run out of capital. I'm like, okay,
right.
Maybe once. So, and I just kind of put the brakes on. I'm like, well, then that's dumb. Like, I don't know how people do it. But as I started to learn about other real estate ideas, Bigger Pockets is obviously huge on the BRRRR Method, Brandon Turner, those guys, and started to study it out. I'm like, oh, wait, there's a way for me to do this, get all my capital back out so I can do it again. And I'm like, okay, this is the vehicle. This is the thing that I'm going to do. And so all my deals have been with the BRRRR Method also. I used my own home equity line of credit to fund the first few, but now I'm starting to branch out into private money. So I'm very curious as to learn more about how you're doing that. I was actually speaking with a potential private money investor, and one question came up that I wasn't exactly sure how to answer. So he so obviously, if they fund a deal for you, they have a lien on the property, right? It goes through a title company, whatever. They have a way to get their money back, right?
Right.
Yeah, but if they fund the rehab cost, what's their avenue to get that portion of the money back, right? Because the house is only worth so much. Maybe they give you an additional 15 grand for the rehab. How do they get that money back if something happens to me or the deal or whatever?
So you mean, okay, so we pay it out at closing. So
Right.
like on the refinance closing. So you can either just tell your attorney and be like, hey, look, at closing, you're going to repay off, of course, the lien against the property, as well as X amount of sum also has to go. You could also like make it a formal if you wanted to and do like an invoice. Like I've done that before where people have lent me money and at closing, I will submit to the attorney like an invoice to be repaid to this contact. And then they just cut a check at closing with those same funds. But if you're talking about how to...
if the deal goes south before the refinance, like say the deal falls apart, something's happened, what's the protection for the investor?
We have a promissory note as well as the lien against the actual property. So the promissory note is for the full amount of the funds that were loaned, whatever the working word is. So, yeah.
Yeah. So not only the lien protects them because they can then eventually foreclose on the property to get their money back, but they also could call or execute a promissory note, meaning they have legal ways to get the money back from you. It obviously would be a process, but
right. And you could probably just do another lien against the property. You can have multiple liens against the property. So I would just, if they're concerned about that, I do this all the time. Honestly, I'm not the smartest person in the room. I just know who to call. And I'll tell people up front all the time, like, I don't know, but you know what? I'm gonna find out. And then I call and I'm like, yo, help me.
That's perfect. That's all you need to know.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So using the BRRRR method on these multifamily, how does the BRRRR method differ, or maybe it's not any different between a single family home and a multifamily home, this residential size? Are they different in any way, or what are some tips as you start going into the multifamily stuff?
It depends on your market for sure. So in our market in Fayetteville, it all goes back to the appraisers for us. So appraisers, they're not familiar with multifamily. They're not familiar with doing appraisals for them. So it can be bad if you're unsure of yourself. It has worked in my favor because I tend to be a little bossy. So if something comes back in a way that I don't like it, for the appraisal to cash out as much as I need to, I call them, I submit comps. I'm like, hey, look, I've been doing this X amount of time, or my team has, like, I throw out stats and they'll change, like they'll $20,000 just like that. They'll like change the appraisal, which goes to show, I hope people like who are listening to this, like in any appraisal, single family, multi, that's just a person and they're just going out and doing whatever they think. It's not an exact science. Like it is definitely an art and it is manipulatable. So do not hesitate. If you don't get what you want, pick up the phone, write an email, do whatever you need to do to force the outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so for somebody, you mentioned the ARV, knowing the after repair value, that's super crucial in general to real estate, but especially to the BRRRR method, because otherwise you're going to have to leave money in the deal. And for somebody that's trying to find their first few properties or whatever, and how can they get good estimations of the ARV, good comps? I mean, I know they can work with an agent, obviously, but sometimes agents will take 3 or 4 days to get comps back to you. And by then the deal, if it's a good deal, it's not going to hang out for 3 or 4 days waiting for you. So what's the fast way? Is there software, are there programs out there to at least get within the realm of a good ARV to make an offer on?
I'm sure there is software out there, but I'm an agent. I just use the MLS and I pull comps in 2 seconds. But what I was going to say with agents too is, you guys, if you're an investor, you really need to look for an investor savvy agent. You need to find someone who's on Bigger Pockets, who knows what an ARV is, who knows what a BRRRR is, because that agent can make or break a deal. And so just be careful with that. But anyway, we use Zillow. We tell our clients, like, we have 2 little short training videos on how to get an ARV using Zillow. So when they ask us for like 20, CMAs, and we just send them videos and be like, have fun, send me your top 1 or 2. Because investor clients will drive you for crazy. So the other side of the house for you.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of times people will go get their real estate license, and then you'll get started in that as an agent and then start to invest. You mentioned you did it the other way around, right? You started investing and went and got your license. What circumstances, or why did you decide to go get your license eventually?
Well, I did my first intentional purchase, and my agent didn't help with anything. He literally didn't do anything. It was a hot freaking mess. And I kept telling him, like, from an investor being like, it was listed for 90. I was like, yo, let's submit 75. And he's like, no, like, that's not going to accept it. But I'm not going to do it. And eventually I convinced him to. Freaking got accepted at 75. I was like so irritated throughout the whole process. And by the end, I like saw his commission on there, and I was like, I can do that better. Yeah. And at this point, I didn't have at this point, I wasn't going to go back to any job where anyone was telling me what to do, where to be. Like, after being in the Army for 6 years, I was like, I am my own human. Let's go. So the fact that it is your own business and you can make or break yourself is really appealing to me. That's one of the other things that I dislike about the military or traditional jobs is a lot of times promotions and increase in income are based on time. You sit in that chair for 2 years. Okay, now you get a little more money. Whereas like my first year in real estate as an agent, I made twice as much as I did after almost 6 years in the Army as a captain. Yeah. Like not even like a lower, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So anyway.
No, I love that.
Did I even answer your question?
No, that was great. Yeah, no, that's good. So all the properties that I'm investing in are out of state. So let's just say that I wanted to get my license as an agent. How does it work if I'm investing out of state and I want to be on the agent on my deals out of state? Can I get licensed in that state, or what? I'm not familiar with how that works.
It's state by state rules. I don't think that there's any issue with you. I mean, there can't be being out of state and being your own broker on a deal in another state, because we actually have some agents who've moved who still do deals for us here. There's 2 potential issues that I see. The first one is for North Carolina in particular, pre-COVID, the requirement was you had to physically sit in class. So I don't know if your state in particular requires a physical attendance for getting licensed. And then the other thing is, like if you have a contractor, if you have trusted boots on ground who can get into those properties and get your eyes on for you, then you'll be fine. But a lot of times out-of-state investors use a local agent just for that, to get the eyes on as they take pictures, do video walkthroughs, hey, this looks crazy. This looks great.
Yep. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I usually lean on my agent a little bit, but I pay for a home inspection every time just because they're super thorough, like ridiculously thorough. And I feel like I've seen the entire property, even though I have not been on site. So I'm pretty comfortable. And I obviously don't do that till after I'm in contract with an inspection contingency to get out if I have to. So
right.
That's awesome. You have definitely accomplished a lot so far. What did you learn in the Army that's helped you succeed in the real estate world? I'm sure you get this question a lot, but what are some of those lessons or those habits that you've developed that's helped you to succeed outside?
The Army was amazing for me. I would not be where I am without having served for 6 years. So many things. Okay, the first one that instantly hits my brain is in the Army, they have what's called SOPs for everything, standard operating procedures for literally everything. And so it's just ingrained in me. You do something once, you write down how you do it. There's your checklist system. You file it away and you keep adding to the system as lessons learned. And that's your easiest way to hire on and expedite your growth, is because after you've done it once and you have your checklist, there's your checklist to hand someone else and have them do it for you. So documentation for sure. And then a lot of people have trouble leveraging or letting go or outsourcing things. I have almost zero issue saying, I'm not the best person for this job. You can do it better, And so I'm really good at like delegating, but with that, it's delegate, but verify. Like, I'll send something, and I'm really big on reminders. So like I'll send an email, and I never trust that the thing that I'm requesting is going to happen ever. So you send the email and you go 3 days, you set a reminder to check in. Hey, where are we at with this? Hey, just checking in. So, but anyway, so systems, leverage, and then people in general. So something that's really helped me grow my business, the fact that, I have a firm in two cities now, is the fact that I was in charge of, 11 people in my HR shop in the Army, and I was in charge of counseling and, hey, here's what you're doing well. Here's what you need to improve on. Like interpersonal skills. How's your family? What can we fix in your life that will make you more effective in the workplace? Like all of those things have translated into what it is today. And then I talk so much. Then the last thing I was going to say is understanding how the organization works. Like, and this is the investing side, but also more so probably in my firm, but the way you can build it so that people have ownership of their lane in the piece of the puzzle, and you let them own their piece and don't micromanage them, because then it's theirs and they will take pride in it and they will accomplish it way better than you ever could. And with that, give them the vision of, once we've grown this, then you're in charge of people and you're helping developing them. And then they're the ones, and just, so helping structure it so that way it's always able to grow to the next level. Does that make sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. Yeah. So currently you have a team that's not only, it's a brokerage, right? So you're just helping people purchase their own homes, but also helping investors buy homes. So how is that how have you structured that, and how does that work in the way applying what you just explained to us?
Yeah. So we broke it down into sections within the firm. And it's really not like other firms that I've seen, because I'm so big on lanes. That's one of the things I'm really big on. I'm big on 80-20 principle, focus on your one thing, let other person focus on your 80% as their one thing, and everyone just operates as a well-oiled machine. But we've broken the team down into essentially administrative help and the agents. And within the agents, we've even broken it down further. We have our investor division and we have a residential division. So we have those people who are investor specialists, and that's what they do. And we have literally we screen our clients. The clients, I'm sure they screen us too, but we screen them because they need to know their criteria. They need to know what they're looking for, have funds, be educated. And if they don't have the right tools, we provide that for them. But anyway, so that, and then we help people, like normal people, buy a dream home, sell their house. And then the admin side of the house is broken down into two sections, where we have the true admin, who they are in charge of contracts. They talk to the attorney, they schedule appointments for the home inspection, the termite inspection, they ensure closing timelines stay on track. They are contract focused. And then the last piece is our operations. So they're the ones who help with like our Pints Properties real estate investors meetup events, our team training, trips, team building, all of the fun stuff, apparel, swag, and social media marketing.
Yeah, perfect. So what we talked a little bit about what you've learned in the Army, systems wise and things like that. What is a mindset attribute that you've learned as far as on a personal level, not like with teams or anything, but personally, like what did the Army teach you as far as mindset goes?
The best thing that the Army is not that great at mindset, to be honest. The best thing that the Army is good in regards to mindset is you have to find a way. Like you can't just come up and be like, I didn't do it. Like you have to, I don't care how you figure it out, go figure it out, find a way to win, and creative problem solve the shit out of whatever you need to do to make sure that you can tell the boss that you did it. That's the best thing that the Army, no is not an answer. Yeah.
And how do you apply that in real estate investing? How would you, a newbie that's trying to get in, how would you teach them that principle?
That's really funny. It's, we just had like a whole first team sync of the year was on Monday, and we went over like core values, and one of them was like problem solving. One of our core values is it's extreme ownership, problem solving, trustworthy, and growth mindset are like our core values.
Yeah.
But the find a way to win one, like make it happen, it comes under problem solving. We use that. Like, that's what people come to a real estate agent who's an investor specialist for. I think at least it's like they come to you because they have like a goal and they need to help you accomplish that goal. So your job in that process is whatever problems arise, like solve it. You have to figure it out. You have to be able to think 3 steps ahead and being the experts, because all of our investor specialists also invest. So they have personal experience with this stuff. They're able to understand the process so well that they can be like, oh, you're trying to use this lender to do this deal with this outcome. No, we got to switch this. Make sure you tell them this. Don't send them this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like that problem solving, that find a way to make it happen type of thing.
Love that. So what attribute or mindset attribute, well, let me rephrase this. What separates those people that succeed in real estate investing or in whatever endeavor they are attempting to accomplish, and those that don't? What's the one thing that you would put to that?
I'm torn between just perseverance in general and extreme ownership. Like, I am so big on extreme ownership, that everything that happens or fails to happen in your world is because of you. It's up to you. Yeah. So, and that goes in so many different levels. It's like, if you don't know how to do something, you can't sit around and wait for someone to teach you. Like, are you obsessed, and are you Googling? Are you reading the books? Are you calling people? And are you like forcing the end state that I have to figure, like, it's yours to own. Yeah. I think that's a lot of people want to be spoon fed. They don't want to do the work, and it's hard. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that, right? Like, they're always looking for a coach not that coaching is not good, but you have to take some of your own ownership. And at the end of the day, can you apply the principles that you're learning and your coaches are telling you about, or your mentor is teaching you? Like, there's nothing in the way but you most of the time.
Yes.
And I'm one of my favorite things that I say all the time. I'm just like, yeah, I take full responsibility. Like, no matter what it is and what happened, I take full responsibility, even though if it has nothing to do with me. So I love that phrase and that mentality. I think perseverance and taking full responsibility, extreme ownership is spot on. That's great. So what tips would you have for somebody that's wanting to get into real estate? Like, say they haven't done anything. It's day one. They just read Robert Kiyosaki's book. They want to get out of the rat race. They want to get some passive income, whatever. Where would you tell them to start? What are the first 2 or 3 steps that you would recommend to them?
It's funny. I get asked this a lot, actually. And I usually say 2 things. The first one is, because our team gets asked this so much, we have action steps. Literally, it's action steps to becoming a real estate investor. And it's like 4 key things with like breakdowns of what to do. So when we ask that question, we just send it. So that's the first thing. I can share it with you if you want.
We could definitely put that in the notes. Actually, that would be great. A link to that.
Perfect. Let me write that down. I will never remember anything unless it's written down. Okay. And then the other thing, which is actually on our action steps, but I'm always just like, get on Bigger Pockets. Why are you not get on Bigger Pockets right now? Because from there, you can ask questions, you can watch videos, you can run numbers on calculators, you can figure out how to run numbers. Like, that's where I learned almost everything.
Yeah.
That's
really
it.
Yeah. Bigger Pockets is a huge resource. The books that they have provided, the podcast is phenomenal. And they actually have several podcasts now, which are jam-packed with good information, but also something that's crucial when you're just getting started is just motivational stories. They interview so many people that have just been doing it for 2 or 3 years. And early on in my career, that was super motivating, because I'm like, hey, if that guy can do it, I bet I can do it too, right? He went from 0 doors to whatever 50 doors in 2 or 3 years. I'm like, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. And so those stories were super motivating initially, because there's going to be resistance when you first try and get started, and you've got to have ways to get through that, get through the tough days, And if you just keep hearing these stories of people being successful in it, maybe it's a personal thing, but it was just super motivating for me to hear those stories every day as I listened to the podcast. And even your story is super motivating. I mean, 74 doors in like basically 3 years. That's pretty amazing. So hopefully people are getting inspired by your story. What books do you recommend? What's your favorite business book? I guess I'll ask.
That's no, it's so hard. The only reason why I did that is because lately I've had this complete I don't even know the word, where you go back and you reevaluation of like every book that I've ever said was my favorite. Mm-hmm. And then I realized that the only reason why it was my favorite is because it said the words that I needed to hear at the time in my life. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to be like, this is the best book, you should read it, because I don't know where people are in their journey. But starting out, the one that really, really kicked me in the teeth in such a good way was Miracle Morning Millionaires by Hal Elrod and David Osbourne. And I still reread it. I go back and look at my notes that I wrote. It's so cool because it's dated and it's like August of 2018 and like where I was. But love that book. And I'm a huge morning person. Like the morning will set your day up for success. And if you do the right thing. So anyway, love that book. Love, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I will always love that book. And I think that being able to interact with people and have them like you, that's the only way you're going to be able to do anything, because people will go above and beyond if they just like you. So, put a smile on, read that book. It's good. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess
I could go on, but
yeah, I know it's almost an unfair question, because you're right. Like, it totally depends on where you are in the journey. I mean, we can have our favorites because they impacted us at a certain time in our life. And so I have a list of a few, but whenever somebody asks me like, what book should I read? What do you recommend? I'm like, well, where are you at? Like,
right.
Where are you at in the process? What's your mindset like right now? How can we correct that or fix that? I often think mindset's kind of one of the biggest limiting factors and obstacles for people. I mean, you can watch as many YouTube videos as you want about how to flip a house or how to use the BRRRR method, but if your mindset's just messed up, like you're never going to succeed in anything. And so that's why we focus a lot on mindset in the platform. But I agree with you, though. It just kind of depends. But so the Miracle Morning, I've read a couple of times, actually just finished it. I fine-tuned my Miracle Morning just recently, actually. So that's been exciting. But you said it was the Miracle Morning Millionaires. That was
Millionaires.
How does that one differ from the standard one?
I wish I could tell you. I've never read the standard one. But I've been told that it's different just because they correlate it to mindset about money too. Okay. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's like got savers in it and like all of the normal stuff, but then they just think about like your finances and make sure that you like account for every penny, regardless of how much money you have coming in. You need to, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, and it really helped me because at that time in my real estate business as an agent, I was making so much money. Like, it was stupid. I was like, this is stupid. And then you get to that point where you're making a lot of money and you're like, oh, well, I don't care anymore because there's so, like, you can't do that. Because then fast forward, I'm opening a firm. Then, when you start a business, you put a lot into it before you see anything out. Yeah. So like, it's just like, you have to realize that you need to take it seriously. Stuff like that.
Yeah. I love that. So where, a couple more questions and then we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, dude, all you.
Awesome.
We're good.
So, where are you going now? Like, what's the plan for you over the next couple of years? What's your focuses? Where are you trying to grow?
Yeah, it's so funny. We, as a team, we just did our like 2020 review and 2021 goals. So I did think about this recently. A year from now, I would like to stop receiving calls, sounds so bad, from people who I don't want to take calls from. Mm-hmm. That's really my goal. So I want to have built my companies to a place where there's a right person at each level so that problems are solved. Because right now my main job is just solving problems. Like, that's what I do, is solve problems. And I just want to make sure that I have the right people in the place to solve as many problems as possible to eliminate the amount of calls I get. And then with that, I want to speak. I want to go to more conferences. I want to network, and I want to help people create meaningful lives. Like, that's my big thing lately is like, it's not about having enough money to run off into the wilderness or go to a beach and drink a margarita every day of your life. It's like finding your own purpose, and it's different for everyone, but like helping people find the thing that makes them feel happy at the end of the day, that they've done something worthwhile. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast, but my biggest thing is that, we have one life, we have one chance. I hate for it to be limited by time or money.
Right.
By that, I mean, I sound so stuck up when I say that, but you know what I mean? Like I just, all the time I hear people say, well, yeah, I used to like snowboarding, but it's expensive and now I don't really have time anymore. So I kind of gave it up. And I just hate hearing people give up things that they're passionate about, because whatever, they finally get out into the real world, they have a job, and they money constraints and time constraints. And I don't want that to be the limiting factor. And it's limiting factor on society and just people in general, where I think we could accomplish a lot more good if everybody was striving to get to a place where time and money was no longer a limited thing. And now they can do more good.
Right.
They can go to conferences and they can speak and they can give of their time and money and mind and heart. And that ultimately lifts all of society. Like, if we can all get there individually, like, the world becomes a better place. So if we can just figure out how to not be limited by time and money, that is huge to me. And so I'm trying to accomplish that in my own life and hopefully teaching others to do the same. So I think, yeah, you're right. You're on the right path there. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love what you just said about how it does start with all the individuals fixing themselves and then the society. I 100,000,000% am behind that.
Yeah, I love that. So last question here. For somebody let's just say somebody's into real estate, they've got a few properties, whatever, and they're trying to gain momentum. How would you instruct them or encourage them to grow a team around them? Because you've done a good job with that. Sounds like you're still getting all those pieces in place, but because sometimes it's very hard to say, well, I can't afford hiring somebody. I can't afford, growing a team around me and to help me put these processes in place. Like, what would you say to that? How would you encourage somebody to do that?
I would say you can't afford not to. Mm-hmm. Like, you are the brain of your business. And if your brain is busy doing things that is not the 20%, is not the most effective use of your brain power that only you can do, then you are doing a disservice to your business and you are slowing down your ability to expedite the process. Yeah. So one of the things I talk about people, because I have a consulting thing now where I help people grow real estate teams. And a lot of people are like, I can't afford to. And I'm like, well, you're not hiring them forever. Let's not think about, I'm going to hire them and I'm going to pay them $30,000 this year. No, you're going to hire them in chunks. And if you don't like them after 2 weeks or a month or 90 days, then they don't have to be on your team anymore. Yeah. So it's not a forever type of thing.
Yeah. And I can't remember who told me this, but somebody made a wise comment once where it was something to the effect of, don't hire for where you're at, but hire for where you're trying to go. And so a lot of entrepreneurs will say, well, I'm not quite there yet. Like, I'm not at that level to where I need to hire, but you need to hire for where you want to be and the resources that you need to have in getting there. And so sometimes it's just a shift in mindset of like, well, hire for where you want to get to, not where you are. And yes, it does take, it's going to take time and money, but it ultimately will get you to your destination faster, I think.
I agree. And I want to shift it always back to the person. Because the other thing that people will say is like, I don't have the right person. Like, I don't have the right person who gets what I want or doing. And that I always turn it back to them. It's like, I found it, at least in my experience, that recruiting and trying to like go after people doesn't work well. I found that if you can attract them, then it works much better. And the only way that you can attract the people who you want and like-minded is being that person. And if you are who you want to be, those people will notice and they'll find you, type of thing. Yeah. Maybe a little different because it's a firm, but as opposed to, but same concept. Yeah. You can find the best people if you are the best you.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's crucial that the SOPs that you were talking about, like you're going to have to get to a point where you have a system and you're organized so somebody else can take that from you. Like if you can't scale chaos, otherwise you just get more chaos. So you have to have some system. So hiring earlier on in the process will help you start acting like a real business, not just like a hobby investor, but acting like a real business with systems, with things in place so that other people are going to start assisting you with that. And I think that will help. That'll help grow the business ultimately.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, Shelby, this has been great. Where can people find you? How can they reach out to you if they want to learn more?
On Facebook or Instagram is probably the best people for random. My personal stuff is real estate with Shelby Osbourne, and my team is Five Pillars Realty Group. So we have both Charlotte and Fayetteville on social media, both Instagram and Facebook. So, or fivepillarsrealty.com. Super fun. Go there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been awesome to chat with you.
It's been so fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Money Maven Project podcast. A true maven shares knowledge with others, so be sure to share this podcast and leave a review. Thanks so much. And until next time, live life with intention.